My name's Calum Davidson. I'm Director of Energy and Low Carbon with Highlands and Islands Enterprise. We're the Scottish Government Development Agency for the north and west of Scotland. And we're also closely involved with what we call the Pentland Firth and Orkney Waters Marine Energy Park, which is our wonderful TLAs, or three-letter acronyms, subjecting to you first thing in the morning. Myself and my colleague Johnny Gowdy from the Southwest MEP are going to open this wave and tidal session, very kindly sponsored by ABB, and really focus on what's been happening with marine energy parks. I'm going to kick off first of all with a kind of overview of what's been happening in the north of Scotland in the wave and tidal sector, and crucially how we're preparing for the first tidal arrays as they're developed out over the next 18 months to 2 years. So really, a little bit of looking back first of all, what are the key issues that are facing the north of Scotland in the wave and tidal sector at the moment? First of all, technology readiness is absolutely critical, and that's where EMEC, as still the world's only fully grid connected wave and tidal test centre, is absolutely critical for taking the sector forward. On the wave side and also on the tidal side, there's probably more machines installed there than anywhere else in the world at the moment, and what we're seeing now is some serious bits of kit in the water getting the hours on the clock that's so critical for taking the sector forward. Secondly, there's no point in having machines unless you can actually get projects to financial closure and actually get the projects through the consenting process, get the machines in the water and actually start building out those arrays. And I'm delighted to say that we're now really in the final stages, the last few weeks and months, of getting a couple of big projects in Scotland to the stage now where we're fully confident they'll be built out over the next 18 months to 24 months. And that's really important because that's support from the public sector, but I think it's very important to highlight the role that the private sector is taking forward. And crucially, Atlantis Resources Corporation, or Atlantis Scotland as they're now called, raising significant sums of money on the alternative investment market is a very important pointer for the rest of the industry. However, there's no point putting machines in the water if you can't actually get the power out. And those of you who've been following the trade press over the past few weeks will be aware of the issues facing grid in the Scottish Islands, where, to be blunt, most of the primary resources. Some of the early projects we're talking about are luckily connected through to the mainland in Caithness, but we have a major grid challenge in opening up particularly the Orkney Waters, Shetland and the Western Isles, and that's taking a big focus. But finally, I think the one thing I'm going to just spend the next 5 or 6 minutes talking about is infrastructure. We've learned a lot over the past 2 or 3 years talking with the industry on what their infrastructure needs actually are for the fabrication, assembly, deployment and build out of the sector. And that's crucially where the public sector comes in, because developers themselves really are not interested in running ports, harbours or fabrication facilities. And that's where the public sector working with existing port owners and existing harbours is so critical. Quick reminder, most of you here won't actually need this. So the range of wave technologies that we're seeing up in Caithness and Orkney at the moment, and crucially the much wider range of tidal technologies. All these require different types of vessels, different type of structures, different type of port infrastructure and different types of fabrication facilities to actually build themselves out. And looking back in almost 10 years of EMEC and how this has been taken forward, we can learn some interesting lessons. So, taking this forward, our discussions with the developer community over the past 2 or 3 years has highlighted that developers need ports and harbours and fabrication facilities really to do 3 things. First of all, to manufacture devices, to fabricate them, and also crucially to test a lot of the components onshore before they're actually installed in the water. Secondly, you're then needing facilities close to the resource to assemble and then deploy the devices. And then once we've actually got commercial arrays in place, long term, how do you actually undertake operations and maintenance? Now, because there have been 15, 20 different devices developed, tested, put into EMEC over the past few years, a lot of them prototyped and developed in fabrication facilities in Scotland, we're getting a fairly good picture of what the early stages of the industry will require. This is interestingly a picture of the port of Invergordon, taken actually a few years ago, but what we're seeing there is where the industry is focused for its early stage R&D. This is, if you're looking closely, you'll see a DP vessel with an Atlantis device being loaded on there. You'll also see rig IRM work going on, and you'll also see in one corner a buoy device being developed at the same time. So looking at one-off infrastructure, one-off prototyping and demonstration vessel devices really being developed alongside the oil and gas business. This type of port is one that could fulfill a number of functions, but if you're looking at scale development, we actually need to be looking at a different type of scale for developing and building out and assembling larger arrays. So this is what the developers are actually telling us that they need for manufacturing. So big space, more than 10 hectares. They need significant laydown space at the quayside. They're looking at significant water depth, to get fairly large vessels and barges aside. They're needing craneage. They're needing possibly a slipway. This is an interesting one, but they're also needing skilled fabrication labour and access to road rail and connections. And one of the places that's coming forward at the moment as an opportunity for fabrication for early scale devices is the NIG fabrication yard in Easter Ross. You're looking at a space that has got significant covered fabrication. It's got deep water. Crucially at the moment, investing £40 million with support from Highlands Islands Enterprise, my organisation, of £7 million to create a new deep water quayside. Multifunctional, doing oil and gas, but the sheds we're seeing here are big enough to start developing and building out turbines and wider range. So that's a classic opportunity for a fabrication assembly hub for devices. And this is a schematic showing how the owners foresee it being multi-use, working in offshore wind, working in wave and tidal, and working in oil and gas. Secondly, for deployment, a couple of things coming forward. Firstly, what's becoming quite clear is accessibility to resource for deployment is quite important. So you're looking at places where foundations, cables, devices themselves can be taken, assembled and built together. So you're looking at a couple of, more than a hectare of laydown, some covered workspace, decent deep water craneage, quayside craneage, the ability to support a whole range of different types of vessels, ability to do some pre-installation testing, and also for accommodating potentially jack-up barges. Now that's quite a big ask, and that covers a whole range of SINs and different types of devices, but that's perhaps one of the things we're seeing at the moment is the device developers themselves don't really know exactly what they're wanting, and they're looking for ports and harbours facilities that cover a whole range of activities. So this is, for example, the Arnish Yard in the Western Isles, where you're seeing the oil giant loading on a fabrication facility that was built there, a foundation. This is Line S in Scapa Flow, the kind of primary focus for EMEX wave site. You're seeing a Pelamis device there, you're seeing the Wellow Buoys Penguin device, and you're also seeing significant laydown space in deep water, and that's we suspect that particular site will play an important role in the build out of some of the early tidal devices in the Pentland Firth. Crucially, it's got the laydown space to store components and the ability for testing. And this is Scrabster across in Caithness. This is the Scott Renewables device being craned on shore for some O&M, again developed on the back of government support. New quayside there. There's going to be covered fabrication space, and it's got the ability to support both. You see the CCAT type devices as well as oil and gas vessels. So classic opportunities for long-scale O&M as well as deployment. So O&M itself, here you are, you're seeing probably a smaller requirement, reasonable amount of quayside, depending on the size of vessels, 2 to 8 metres, still need laydown space, still need local facilities, and then you're starting to look at the requirement for office, longer-term office space, skilled workforce, craneage as we saw in the previous one, and the ability to have craneage lifting vessels on devices on and off. So here we're seeing Hatston in Orkney with a number of devices both in the water and on the quayside, and a classic sort of longer term O&M port. Deep water, but also the ability to have onshore fabrication and onshore maintenance. Kirkwall itself, just across there, you're seeing a very large crane barge. That's a type of scale and size of facility that will be required. And finally, these are some buildings that we've built in Kirkwall. These are combined O&M developer spaces, providing both office space and also workshop space for a range of device developers. And that's the sort of thing that we're seeing that the industry will need as it moves forward. Not just large sheds where people can build things, but quite sophisticated workspaces that allow a whole range of project teams to be involved in activities. And these are filling up fast. Anyway, that was just a very quick canter through some of the activities that we've been seeing in the north of Scotland over the past few years, and some of the feedback we've been getting from developers about the type of infrastructure that they're going to be requiring to take forward the industry over the next 2, 3, 4 and 5 years.